I'm Kate Roberts and I'm here from the Gambling Impact Society, and I'm just going to introduce myself. Okay. We've managed to solve the problem with a little film that I'd like to show you really before I speak any more. This is a presentation about the Consumer Voices program. I would love to have my team here, but they couldn't, so I've brought them in film instead. So I'd like to just start the presentation with this short film. Oh, hopefully it was working.
The Consumer Voices program has actually been amazing to watch unfold.
Our endeavours with the consumer voice going out telling our stories will go all over the community, all walks of life.
I enjoy it because it actually makes me feel like I'm worthwhile. I enjoy it because I get the message out there.
And the training with the Consumer Voices actually gave me the confidence to be able to stand up and tell the story.
Even if it changes things for one person, it's an amazing impact to have. It stretches through so many people's lives.
The program has been extremely empowering for my clients that have been involved and all the people that I've gone out and spoken with.
It's helped me, or it's given me the feeling that I can actually use my negative experiences to positive effect.
I find that being able to tell a story like this reinforces the fact that I know that you can change, and I've been able to do it, and it just gives me strength to continue on.
I actually heard other people's stories and didn't feel so bad about telling my own.
The reception from the audience has been quite incredible. Rather than being judgmental, a lot of them have been inspired and in awe really of these people getting up and telling their story and having the courage to do so.
One day I just started talking about it and telling people, and now I'm always doing it. And it's great because it takes away that stigma that's always been attached to it.
I have got a lot of self-development out of it, from losing my shame associated with gambling, even though I wasn't the gambler.
It's really empowering being able to help people and show them that you can have a positive outcome.
Some of the benefits I've found from being in Consumer Voices is meeting lots of new people with similar issues and solutions.
So I've been self-empowered, I've had my own healing come from it, and I've been amazed when I've delivered my Consumer Voice talk at the responses I've had from people and how positively it was affected.
Helping families and partners to support their partners. I think there is a lot of focus on the gambler themselves, but I think maybe partners and family don't realise that there is help for them as well.
I feel that I might be able to help other people who either have a problem themselves or know someone who's got a problem by helping to sort of put them or point them in the right direction on how to get help and what sort of help is available out there.
Great. I can go home now. So basically I wanted to share with you our experiences as the Gambling Impact Society of New South Wales, which is a consumer-driven voluntary organisation, health promotion charity, about setting up this project that's been now running for going into 18 months, and the delivery of these consumer education programs into the community. And this is really just an overview of the first sort of 12 months of the project, and we've now been refunded in this last financial year, so we're well into the last bit of it. For anyone who's been involved in public health and health promotion, these are basic principles of engagement with communities. I'm not going to go through them, but as I say there, it can often feel like we're climbing a mountain. The Consumer Voices project is a really good story, and I guess it's been a certain peak for us in terms of being able to deliver a program that we spent a lot of time thinking about, talking to others about their experiences with a similar program in South Australia and an evolving program in Victoria in Australia. And we made a commitment that we wouldn't actually take this on until we could get proper funding to do it. And we were very pleased to get a seeding grant of $50,000 from the Commonwealth Government in the previous financial year to get started, after having sort of dug around for about 5 years trying to find money to do this. But basically the key who messages that underpin all our work in the Gambling Impact Society are about community engagement, participation and engaging consumers actually in both the development and delivery of services. And we do that in a variety of ways, including a management committee that is made up of both consumers, community and welfare, health professionals and people like myself who wear all those hats. And basically working with the community in partnership with other agencies, for instance in this service, in terms of engaging them as participants in receiving the service as well. The Consumer Voice project certainly is very grounded in the experiences of Relationships Australia in South Australia, and we're very grateful to Rosemary Hambledon and her team there for their support in sharing some of their resources and ideas with regards to their experiences with their Consumer Voice, which has a slightly different focus in that it's come together with industry and primarily provides speakers into industry, but some community settings, whereas our focus has been primarily with the health and welfare sector and the service sector and the community at large. These are the overall aims of the programme, which is fundamentally about raising awareness in the community about the potential impacts of gambling, the issues around problem gambling, and trying to destigmatise it generally, so that, you know, people who generally know quite a bit about other health issues, we regard this as another health issue that the community at this stage still has some rather stereotyped ideas about. And so primarily it's about taking people who've been affected, whether that's a person who's gambled problematically themselves or a family member who's been affected, to take them as partners with a gambling counsellor from one of our local services into a process of engagement that's about an hour long, a session where we start off with the context of gambling in the community and then basically pull that down to the individual narrative and contextualise that with service promotion, and really provide the opportunity for people to ask questions and come at it very much from the point of view of this is anybody can be affected by this issue. There are certain vulnerabilities in all of us, but this is also a product safety issue, and that is the point by which we get across this. And we're very again the idea of rolling out victims into the community. So we basically do this through our training before people go out, and our engagement with the Gambling Help Services who are in partnership with us in delivery. So we're very much a bottom-up approach. And where our philosophy is basically driven by acknowledging the expertise that people who have had gambling problems or been impacted by gambling problems have their own expertise, and that this is of value to the community. Many actually want to contribute, and you heard in that video the experiences that they've had of being involved in it, and that those people who are out there who we believe have an interest and also a community of concern want to have access to these stories, and also see that these are people not with 8 arms and 7 heads. They're just like each and every one of us, that they've got caught into a certain situation, and that we are all basically involved in the accessibility of that product and have choices to make about in the community how much of that product we want, or these products we want, and how we respond to them. And we believe the personal narrative is a good way of perhaps engaging at more of a heart level around this issue, and certainly the feedback has been extremely overwhelmingly positive. So the philosophy is to basically increase people's knowledge about it by exposure to the personal narrative, and increase therefore education. We believe that it will reduce barriers for people to access both support, but also just about building community capacity, about a community of empathy and understanding, and demystifying and destigmatising this issue, we hope. And promoting the public health approach to it and consumer protection approach, and avoiding the pathologising. Although, as I say, you know, it's you know, the whole concept of bringing a health issue to the public, there is always that risk, but we try to engage in a way that we promote the empowerment of people, communities and the individuals involved. And as again, it reflects our participatory processes. We do believe that people should be paid for their time, and so we provide a nominal fee at $60 a session plus people's travel expenses. It's not a huge recognition, but it is some recognition of them giving up their time and valuing their participation in this. We provide the engagements free of charge to the people who come along. So far there's been about 1,000 people who have come along to these sessions. We've delivered in our sort of going into our second financial year. We're now up to about 100 sessions that we've delivered. We will have done about 140 by the time we come to the conclusion in July. And of course, a big part of that is also supporting the people who are out there exposing themselves. And so we only basically send people out into the community who we have trained. And we do that by holding a full weekend retreat, which is also part of honouring those people. So we have lots of time for food and fellowship, but basically provide them with public speaking skills, communication skills, contextual information about gambling. And for many people that might be the first time that they've actually spoken in a group as well. And so we're basically giving them that, what ends up being quite a cathartic experience, preparing them for the possibilities of awkward questions and obviously exposure and setting safe boundaries. And we do that by sort of supporting people through that process, engaging with them as to other ways they may want to be involved if they feel that they're not ready to do this. And of course they're also screened by the Gambling Help Services before they come along. Most of them referred through there. If not, they're screened by myself, and I am a problem gambling counsellor myself. So the training is there to basically prepare people, to provide them the skills, the supports, and understand the processes by which they're going to take part in this, meet some of the counsellors that they'll be going out with. Initially this was in the Illawarra and Shoalhaven, which is about 2 hours south of Sydney area, and now we've expanded into Sydney and southwest Sydney as well. So we're engaging with other gambling treatment provider services. Initially our partnership has been with Mission Australia because they were our local treatment service. And Greg was the counsellor there, as one of the Mission counsellors. So basically it ends up basically building people's own self-worth in the process of using their negative experience to the benefits of both sharing for themselves and with the community, and being involved in a journey that is quite different from the one they've come from. After the training, they maintain contact with the project workers that we employ to do this, and we basically, you know, $50,000 doesn't give you a lot of project work time, but we have some very good 2 other project workers on this, and we did have extension funds. We provide telephone support, peer group meetings. We also do get written feedback, and obviously we're collecting the data in terms of the evaluation, which is primarily qualitative. This is just an overview of the first lot of the program we did in from May through to May 2012 to March 2013. Since then we've trained additional speakers. So we've trained in all probably about 20 people, and we probably have about 17 active speakers. And as I say, at that stage with 74 sessions, we'd seen 966 people. Well, we've added about another 30 sessions so far, and that will expand to another 40 by the time we finish. The kind of agencies we go out to include the whole gamut, you know, from mental health teams to social work service departments, through to housing departments, through to probus groups. The local prison, we have done Star City Casino. We're engaging with some of the local clubs. We've done some of the responsible conduct of gambling programs. We do have a big history in advocacy work over the last 2 years, so I'm probably not the big flavour of the month with the industry, but this is a program that we think breaks down a lot of barriers as well. But our focus has been mainly on the community welfare sector. and the community at large. And as I said, the evaluations have been overwhelmingly positive. So this is just a kind of example of what people are saying. I'm not going to give you graphs and stats and all the rest of it. These are the words of what people are saying once they've actually come along to a session. Basically, and as you can imagine, these sessions can be anything between, 4 or 5 staff members who've come to a team meeting through to, we've been doing presentations to youth groups where you've got 60 or 70 people in a room at any one time. And what we experience in that is obviously there's more contact when you're in the smaller groups, where we've then had staff members themselves obviously disclosing that this has been an impact for themselves or for a family member, and they've come up to us obviously after morning coffee and that kind of thing, through to staff who, suddenly light bulbs are going on and saying, we really ought to be thinking about this more in our service. And we leave a lot of resources, it's about having an ongoing conversation with people afterwards, hopefully, to direct them to a number of other resources, and certainly the Gambling Help Services, which is our statewide services. But also we have a self-help guide for family members. We're currently working on a guide for helping professionals. We'll have a guide for financial counsellors, and we deliver seminars and service, no direct treatment services, but educational services, help sheets, website, that kind of stuff. So we're hoping to build the capacity of the community in responding to this issue. This is the kind of feedback that, so the counsellors who've engaged with the project, who are actually there, going out, with one of our consumer speakers. Again, it is a GIS program. We're not there because we're not funded to be there, but we're probably the missing link, but we set the whole thing up. Our speaker goes out with the counsellor in an equal relationship. We have a bit of an icebreaker quiz that we do for the contextual stuff. Then it's the consumer voice speaker who speaks first, and then the counsellor basically is there to field additional questions and promote their own service. So it helps them meet their KPIs as well for their service provision in terms of education and awareness. You heard really in the film, we asked people, we've been filming some of the stories. We've got about 8 stories now. About 9 stories now that people have agreed to be filmed that'll also go up on website. But people have overwhelmingly found it a very positive experience themselves. We're very attuned to keeping in touch and creating safety for people and making sure that they can dip in and out of the program as they see fit, and we are guided by that, and we establish an ongoing relationship with our speakers, and that also means that some of them are developing into other areas of getting involved in our organisation. Some of them were already involved in our organisation, I have to say too. And their perceptions of the strengths of the program, I guess, have been about the opportunity to use the word of mouth, the reality of taking part, having changed lives, the fact that people have generally talked about it being incredibly empowering for them. And this really is complemented then by what is coming back from the audience, which they obviously feel themselves in the room, and the kind of questions and getting over the fear that they had about going out there initially, to becoming very relaxed in doing these sorts of presentations. And we certainly provide them back with all the evaluative feedback too, so that they are enhancing their skills as public speakers generally. Some have gone on to do other training as a result of being involved in this. We've had people who've gone on to get work in the field, who are doing community service courses and generally feeling a lot more confident about taking some of those roles. And these are just really the acknowledgements that the funding came originally from FAXIA. We had a change of government. It's now called the Department of Social Services. The counsellors are the counsellors who are funded under the Responsible Gambling Fund, which is our statewide funding service, and in particular Mission Australia, who were the people who kind of came in with us right at the beginning and have been there all the way through, and they are also represented on our management committee. Basically, Rena French and Barbara Bicego, who are our project officers, along with myself, who I am no longer the chairperson, I'm the executive officer and basically project coordinator for this. Rosemary and her team at Relationships Australia, South Australia, who have been excellent and shared their training resources so that we could modify them. And all the members of the Consumer Voices team, who, as we say, have courageously obviously shared their personal stories to be able to make this program as successful as we have found it to date. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a taster and we're very pleased to be able to share that, and if we can be of help for others to set up things similarly like Rosemary has been to us, we're very happy to support that process. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Didn't go on too long then. Hi. Yes, so I mean, in many respects, the agencies we're targeting are frontline services where people are the comment earlier that our program reach in terms of problem gambling specific counselling services, and I'm a supervisor for our statewide counsellors as well. We're getting to maybe 10 or 15% of people that we know are affected by problem gambling, and within that figure, only 16% of them are family members. I'm also a family member and I have a passion to see that people are accessing support, and that needs to come in a variety of forms. So these are trying to get it onto the agenda of agencies that often don't think about problem gambling but are in key positions to respond. Housing department, people are coming through there, social workers in the hospitals, counsellors in the community health settings, welfare support workers in neighbourhood centres, people working we do a lot of presentations to TAFE students in welfare courses, so getting it on their thinking before they go out to work in the welfare field. And what we're trying to do is resource them to start asking the questions. They're seeing people, but they're not asking the questions, I guess. Sure. Yes, we've done a number of youth groups. Yeah, we take a young person. So Kalila, that's our main approach. So Kalila, there you'll see she's 22, and she's actually the family member. I've known Kalila since she was 6, and she talks about the experiences of having had a parent with a gambling problem, but then she puts that into the context of now being a young person herself and her own friendships and the involvement of her friends in gambling issues and her concerns about that. Yeah, so absolutely, yeah, and most of them are. These are groups that are being run through the youth, like the PC. The police citizens groups, and yeah, PCYC, yeah. So we've done a number of things through that, and the youth centres locally as well. So they're often vulnerable youth who are coming through those programs, and again, their responses have been overwhelmingly positive. So we've been asked back several times, which has been great.
Hi, lovely to have you back.
Thank you.
I sometimes wonder whether this type of program exists on a continuum that you can measure in terms of the response of the audience. And at one end of that, there's an audience empathising with and showing great sympathy for the speaker. And at the other end of that is an audience that becomes really angry because they identify with the speaker. So one of the things that we did in Consumer Voices in New Zealand was to try and invest a lot in helping people to tell their story in a very powerful way. So they had not just what happened to me, but what this industry generally does,
yep,
and what it knows about how it can harm people.
Yep.
And the more people were given that kind of information, the more powerful they seemed to be, but also the more that the audience put the tissues away and said,
absolutely,
actually, we're really, really angry, yep, about this happening, yep, in our country. Can you, yep, tell us a bit about that?
I think that's a very good point, and it's certainly something that underpins our philosophy about not wanting our consumers to be rolled out as, you know, the victim of this lovely counselling service. And one of our challenges is that we would like to empower our consumers to do that. Initially, we thought about how could we help them do all the introductory stuff and set the context, and so that probably hasn't happened as well as we would like because they're just too busy trying to get their own story together. So the way that we've managed that is very much through the kind of initial quiz that we do, which sort of sets that tone, which is about, you know, this is a product safety issue. This is really, so we tend to do that. Now, having said the royal we write the quiz. We encourage our counsellors to do it, and the ones that are already working very closely with us know and engage with that philosophy. We at this stage haven't got a lot of control over how that gets delivered, but we have confidence that the counsellors that come forward to engage with us know where we're coming from, and they're passionate about the same sorts of things. So in terms of then the speakers, some of them are very experienced and have also been with us for quite some time, so they do tend to put their story into that context, and our training has also helped them to summarise their stories around not just their, I mean, it is very much about their personal story, but again it's contextualising it really and taking it forward. Yeah, we have had to balance it with our quite strident advocacy work as well, so we've, you know, it's somewhere in between, I guess.
First of all, I would like to say that your speech was really inspiring me about having a retreat for the members.
Yes.
And so usually our session goes 1 hour, they go home kind of thing, and so actually that provide the opportunity for them to share the experience for a long time, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, that is really good. It gives me some kind of what you can do outside the session kind of thing.
Yeah.
But second thing is that I like to ask a question about how you get into ethnic groups within Sydney area, because I heard so many times that Chinese, Korean, it's not only, you know, 10,000, 100,000 one ethnic group.
Absolutely.
And Vietnamese as well. How do you get into that program?
Well, again, it's, I mean, in terms of the invitation to be a speaker, that goes out through a lot of the gambling counselling services, and although they're not up on this screen today, so we have a previous resident of Hong Kong who is Chinese and is a speaker with us. We have a Polish, Indigenous, and the chap obviously from New Zealand that's Samoan background. So we have a reasonable smattering, nowhere near as big as we would like. Then it's a question of how do we get into those other cool communities. So at the moment we're working with the multicultural health teams in both, one is in Sydney, one's in Wollongong, and so they have access to particular groups. So we're working with them. We also have a lot of multicultural resources, but again, we've been asked specifically to go to the Burmese community at the moment. We've just been doing work with them with multiple issues, and there are no Burmese-focused services, no literature, nothing. So, and we don't in this project have translation interpreter services, so we're trying to hope that if we do more of that work we can then tap into the health interpreter services if we partner with the multicultural services within health. Otherwise it's about who wants us at any one time really, and that again is promoting. So most of the project worker's job is promoting the service, getting the engagement, and then matching up the consumer speaker and the counsellor to that service. And obviously, as much as we would like to respond more to some called services, we don't necessarily have the speakers at this stage. Up until this point, as John knows, we survive for 13 years or sort of 11 years on an income of somewhere between 2,000 and 10,000 a year. This is the first time that we've actually had some really decent money, and who knows, we lurch from year to year at the moment. We've just had a change of government who just repealed all our Gaming Machine Act laws, so we may not get more funding. So anyway, if anyone wants to talk to me about it during the conference, that's fine.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to Kate.
Thank you.
Personally, I met Kate probably a couple of years ago at a previous conference, and it's been fantastic to hear her bring all her expertise and experience from New South Wales and talk to us today. So join me in saying thank you to Kate.